Hi, everyone. How are you? I am Dr. Vernita Glenn White. I am a strategic transformational coach and consultant, and I work with high achieving individuals to help them break their personal glass ceiling so they can show up more powerfully in their lives and in their careers. And you're probably thinking, what does that have to do with developing a data informed culture designed for school wide impact? Well, part of what I do with my over 15 years of experience in the education profession from K 12, or I was about to say K 20, but for some people who may not understand what that is, that's K 12 all the way through higher education. I've learned a few things, and what I realized is that people cannot show up at their level of leadership to really move a school if they don't understand how to lead themselves first, right? So my background is STEM education and STEM leadership. The concentration is on mathematics, but all things STEM nonetheless. And then also the personal development part. And this is a series of the evolution of my career. And if you watch the other videos, you would see the transition of how I've gone strictly from content, and then you'll see how I end up making personal development, leadership development, self-growth, all of those things as a focus, and then circling back around to more content such as STEM. So this is a presentation that a few colleagues of mine and we did this at the National Association of Elementary School Principals, or was it secondary principals? It was in 2018, so I can't remember, but it was one of those presentations. And although I'm not the main lead on here, I was there to help with the presentation. The people that you see on the screen, Dr. Kristopher J. He's an awesome mathematics educator. You can go look him up on social platforms at Dr. Kristopher Childs. I think he's big on Twitter, so go follow him there. And unfortunately, Dr. Damien Moses, he passed away. At the time of this recording, it was probably about now almost 2 months ago, and still heartbreaking because he was a major factor and a major focus for this presentation, because he was a school principal, amazing man, brilliant man. He turned schools around, and this one particular school, Bach Academy, they are not really the school you think of with the demographics to excel, but they've been an A school. I think it was 11 years running that he had been there. And not just an A school like on the surface, like an A school where you can still walk on the campus and ask the students like any type of question and they can answer it. So there is a difference between being an A school on paper and then having students to truly understand and learn what is going on in the school. So that is him. And so this is part of a tribute to Dr. Moses as well. So buckle up, get some notes and everything. And I want to talk to you about developing a data-informed culture designed for school-wide impact. So I am going to come off so you can see the full screen, and let's get started. All right, so the whole thing about how this started was, well, maybe I'll come back. Should I come back? Yeah. How this started is all of us had experiences in the K-12 system. Dr. Moses was a school-wide principal. I had worked at the district level. I was also at the university level as well. I'm trying to get my dates right. Dr. Childs was working at a university, and then I think he moved to working with a textbook company. But we all had our start in K-12 teaching and different parts of leadership teams. And we realized that a lot of schools were not focusing on data like they needed to. And this is why schools were not moving. So if I read the slides to you, this is not to insult your intelligence, but I do understand that sometimes people like to put videos on, they like to let them play and just listen to the background because they're auditory. So that is why you'll hear me read the slides. So not to insult your intelligence. And of course, that is against all things we teach about doing presentations. All right, so it says, what is the current reality at my school in regard to culture and climate, communication, and data usage? And those three things are huge because you need to understand where you're working. right? You need to understand the culture, the hidden culture, and what is really happening in the school, not just on the surface, but at a deeper level, because that does impact how the data will show up. And then communication. A lot of focus is on making sure that the students feel safe, that the students are getting along, and all of those things are great. But then it's like, what is the communication between the teachers and the students, the general faculty of the I was about to say university of the school, because this can go for universities as well. Between the faculty and the staff and the students, and the administration, the administrators, and everyone else. So what is that communication looking like on all of those levels? And then the next part is the data usage. Now, I worked as an instructional mathematics coach at the high school level. I looked at data at the district level, and even during my doctoral program, I looked at data that way as well. And data is very important because raw data, the numbers as they show up, don't lie. Can people manipulate those numbers? Yes, but we're going to go with everyone is using the data appropriately, right? So how is data really being used? And I mentioned my time as an instructional coach because I remember having all the chart paper up in the room, looking at the graphs and the red, the yellow, the green, where the students fell, and all of those things by grade level, by teacher, by department, all of that data. And then it was like, it was nice to look at, but then it was like, what are we going to do with it? So everyone would get all excited about, oh, the data, the data, the data, but then no one did anything with it. So tell the truth. What is the current reality of your school in regards to those three things? All right, so mission, vision, values, and goals. Now this goes, we didn't talk about this during the original presentation, but this is why I love that doing this evolution of my career, to see where my thoughts are now versus what was happening back then. Vision, mission, values, and goals. Those are really key to any organization, especially a school district. What I learned is everyone would have a mission, vision, values, and goals for the school, but no one really talked about if their personal vision, mission, values, and goals aligned with the school or aligned with what was going on their campus. And the reason why that's important, because if you're noticing that things aren't moving in the direction at your job, or in this case, the school, it could be you as the leader, or it could be you as the teacher, or it could be you as someone who's doing support there. And those two things have to align with you personally and professionally. They don't have to be the same, but I do believe that they should be aligned. And when both parties are aligned, meaning the organization and the person, things move a lot faster and a lot better. So the mission, why do we exist? We have to think about the fundamental purpose, and then we have to clarify priorities and sharpens the focus. You need to know what you're doing it and why you're doing it. I know people talk about the why, and it's become like a little catchphrase or something that people just throw out there like a buzzword, but it's really important to know why you're doing something, because if you do know why, then you can get behind it or you can jump off the train. And then the vision, the what. What must our school become to accomplish our purpose? I don't know if a lot of people ask this question. I know that schools and districts, they come with a blanket vision statement, but I really want to know how many people sit down and talk about it and discuss to see if everyone is on the same page or even in the same book. Because I've done some trainings and people were not in the same books. And it was like, somebody doesn't need to be here. And then a compelling future. A vision is more than just a statement. It is really where you want to see the people that you're working with. Where do you see them 1, 2, 5, even 10 years down the road? And you could be thinking, well, I lead an elementary school. Well, you do, I would hope, want to see where those kids end up in 5, 10 years. And not that you have to keep track with them, but you want to prepare them for that. That's where the vision is. Like, what am I preparing them? Not just to complete elementary school, but where am I preparing them to go? And again, it gives directions. And then values, the how. Again, I don't think this is a question that we talk about or hear about, but the how is, We know why we exist. We know what we need to do, but how do we actually do it? And values are more than just like little 5, 6 words that you post up. Again, all of these are I've seen posted around schools, and then nothing's really changing because we don't look at these, at a deeper level. So then it really guides behaviors. I do like that part. And this goes in your personal life as well. If you understand your values, there's just some things you will do and will not do because those are like the guideposts of your behaviors. And the same thing with an organization. And then goals. How will we mark our progress? We all set goals. But the reason why a lot of us don't accomplish goals, whether that's in the organization or personally, is because we don't set this next part, targets and timelines, or I like to say the benchmarks. I know benchmarks as far as benchmark exams, but benchmarks as it relates to goals. We know the micro goal, and we keep that like, the macro, the big goal. But then we don't know the micro. Yeah, we know the macro, but we don't know the micro, the small one. So it's like, I want all the students to achieve at 80 and 90%. Cool. Well, what are we going to do? If they're at 20% achieving, then we know we want them at 80 or 90, but what are we going to do to get them to 30 to 50 to 70, so forth and so on. So that's what I like to look at, breaking down these questions and stop having these blanket statements of just mission, vision, values, and goals. And I talked about this, but this is a better way to sum it up. And these are questions that you can ask yourself and then take back to your team. Why do we exist? What do we hope to become? How must we behave? Which steps and when? That is important. Have, by, when dates. That is how you know you're on the right track to reach your goals. And then success. This is huge. We did this at the conference. How do you define success? And people who were at the same schools had completely different opinions. Now, can success be defined differently by everyone? Absolutely. But I do believe that if you're on a leadership team or you're at a school, everyone should have a similar idea of what success is, because someone could think success is, hey, all the kids showed up today. That's success. Or all the teachers showed up. The entire admin department showed up. Oh my gosh, it was such a successful day. And then someone could show up and say success is all the students scored perfect, had perfect marks on their exams, or all the teachers reached their certain level of the benchmark exams, whatever the case may be. It could be all over the place, but I think we need to have a conversation about how do we define success. Again, it can be they don't have to be exact, but they should be in the same ballpark so that we know where we're moving and how we're moving. And then it's not what you say, it's how you say it. I get that all the time, especially in my personal life. I'll just say stuff and people are like, well, I mean, I agree with what you said, but did you really have to say it like that? And even when I was a teacher teaching 6th graders, I had to remember that they were still little children, and I had to make sure that I caught how I was saying my words.
Tried it your way for years.
Oh, I like this clip. Let me start it over. If you don't know this movie, it is Lean on Me. He put this in the presentation several times. But yeah, I think it's worth including here as well.
You've tried it your way for years, and your students can't even get past the minimum basic skills test. That means they can hardly read. They've given me less than 1 year, one school year, to turn this place around, to get those test scores up, so the state will not take us over to perform the task which you have failed to do, to educate our children. Forget about the way it used to be. This is not a damn democracy. We are in a state of emergency, and my word is law. There's only one boss in this place, and that's me. Are there any questions?
So Joe probably wouldn't be working right now, but some people say he was a hard principal. But what he said was true. How he approached the teachers and the things that he said, they were true. And if you are an educator, but you're not an administrator watching this and you're like, oh my gosh, that is horrible. I want you to look on the other side to that. I've been on leadership teams. I've been in those rooms. I've worked at a school with a state takeover. It is not a pleasant feeling. And the pressure that those administrators have when the higher ups come in, it is brutal. So if you had someone to come in like that, you not excusing the behavior, but understanding the pressures that's going on behind the scenes that they really try to shield their teachers and the rest of their staff from, is, yeah, it can be a lot. And they know they have a job to do, and a lot of them come do it by any means necessary. But what he was saying, I agree with what he was saying, because I understand how that looks and how that feels. So this says, unless educators are working interdependently to achieve a common goal for which members are mutually accountable, they are not a team. Again, unless educators are working interdependently to achieve a common goal for which members are mutually accountable, they are not a team. Accountability, people, it is major. And I know that word is thrown around a lot. There are a lot of departments called the accountability department. I think when I was working at the district level, we had some form of the title accountability, the word accountability in our title. But it's like, are we really holding people accountable? And we're going to get to this, but holding people accountable goes beyond the words. Is you have to inspect what you expect. We've heard that before. So then we asked the people to describe the school they are trying to create. This was also important because we need to see if everyone was, again, on the same page and willing to do the same type of work to reach the same type of goal. And if you're not asking your team where they would like to be, what if they had a school, what would it be like, and things like that, that is very telling. And there were a lot of discussions in this session because admin teams were looking like, I didn't know you thought this way. And then some were like, oh my gosh, high five, we're on the same page. And I'll be honest, you can tell the difference between the status of the schools. Like one school was high performing and the other schools were not high performing. And it was based on the I guess the communication and the culture of the school. Now notice I didn't say what type of school, I just said performing, because they were from all different backgrounds and socioeconomic status and all of those things. So the goals for this session, yeah, we had all that pre-work, and then we said the goals for this session: developing a data-informed school culture, implementing an effective summative assessment process, and then celebrating success at all levels. So the first part, how does your school currently use data? Again, major question, such an important question. Do you just post it up and say, oh, that was nice? Or do you really dig deep and use it? Or do you even know how to use data? We had them to turn and talk. And again, his part was kind of silent because the majority of the teams, when I say teams, the leadership teams, they didn't really have much to say on this part. They would get like, oh, here's a printout, put them up on the wall, and that was it. But we were expecting like maybe a good 20 minutes worth of conversation, and it did not happen. So here's a theory of action. So it says, make sure that you get assemble high quality raw data. And raw data could be anything. Anything is data. It can be qualitative or quantitative data, depending on what you need to use it for. It can be from finances, student reports, homework, assessments, district assessments, your assessment, anything on the computer, just any data. But this is why you have to come together as a team to really define where you want to go, what you want to look at, and then that'll determine the data that you need to collect. And then it says conduct analysis to ensure resulting data are relevant and diagnostic. Yeah, what are you doing with it? Does it make sense to use it? If you're looking at raising mathematics scores, do you really need to go look at how many students ate lunch today? Now, but below the surface, that could be important because they could link up, but we're not going to go that deep. We're looking at what's happening with the actual exams or the state assessments or anything like that as it relates to the mathematics, then looking at the instruction and maybe the lesson plans. And then maybe later on down the road, you can connect the reason why students aren't performing because they're not eating lunch. But that can't be like the first start. Well, I don't want to say can't. If you can make it work, then that's cool. but the data has to be relevant to the problem that you're trying to solve. And I know that sounds like common sense, but you will be surprised. I've walked into many schools and looked into many data rooms, and it's like, you want to focus on attendance, but why are you focused on, I don't know, dress code? Or, now that I'm talking, I can make correlations between this, but they couldn't. They couldn't make those correlations. And the next part, use relevant and diagnostic data to inform instructional and operational decisions. So this was also a big disconnect. They have these gorgeous data rooms that look like they were in think tanks, but then they would go make decisions completely opposite of the data. And it was like, are you serious? It's like you did all of this diaggregating, dissecting, analyzing, and then you turn around and make this decision that had nothing to do with the data, whether that's in the classroom or how you're running the school. This is why we have data. If you're not going to use the data like that and just make the decisions, then don't have data rooms, don't have data chats, don't collect anything, right? And then organizational supports. I think I just read this, but I'll do it again. Assembling high quality data requires strong data infrastructure. Yes, get your systems in place, people. Producing relevant and diagnostic data analysis requires strong analytic capacity. If you're not good with numbers or a lot of words or decoding, and you are an administrator, please get some help. It doesn't make you any less of a leader for you not to be able to do that, but it does look bad if you try to analyze something and you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know how to read the data, the charts, or whatever the case may be. So get some help, because it's more than just looking at numbers. It's a higher level skill. You got to summarize, synthesize, and analyze, right? Promoting effective use of relevant and diagnostic data to inform instructional and operational decisions requires a strong organizational culture of data-informed decision-making. It's a lot of numbers and charts that can be floating around. So yes, you do need to have either someone or a team of people that can organize the data. Because I've seen principal data and even superintendent data in the charts that come across their screens. Oh my gosh. And they need somebody to, not all of them, but a good majority of them need someone to put this in a way that it makes sense to them. So if you can't do it, find someone to do it, because the data needs to be organizing, because you need to know what it says, how it looks, so you can make informed decisions. So SWOT analysis, you've probably seen this, heard this, we hear it a lot, but if you really actually take the time to do it, it is very powerful. What are our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? I'm gonna leave it at that, because I believe a lot of leaders already know either that or some version of that. And if you don't, take some time to research it and use it with your team. But you got to go through all the way. You can't stop at, strengths and weaknesses, or you can't just do strengths and opportunities. And then you can't just go, here are the threats. You have to do the entire analysis, because that's how you make an informed decision. So at all levels of the education system and strong leadership, no, let me read that again. At all levels of the education system, strong leadership and systems of accountability may facilitate successful data use. You see the big and? I think we got education system and strong leadership on lock for the most part, but it's the systems of accountability, meaning that accountability is not just in words, and it's not just a checklist, and it's not just your opinion. It's really looking at, are we inspecting what we expect? If we have this mission, vision, these goals, these values, are we looking at those incremental parts and holding people to the fire if they say they're going to do something, not do something? Are we going with those checks and balances in the way that we're using data? Very important to have all three. Then we asked, what does your current data say in regard to student achievement and school-wide achievement? Again, raw numbers don't lie. So if you're saying, and this is why I partly did my, this is why, part of why I did my dissertation, is that when the new, I guess the teacher accountability instruments came out, how they were rating teachers, the observation protocols, it was saying that teachers were highly effective and effective. like 96% of the teachers in my area, and well, statewide at that point, were like 95 to 96% effective, because it went either effective or highly effective. But then our school scores, the data of the schools were student achievement was down like 50, 60%. Like I forgot how they did it, but it didn't match, right? Because if teachers were effective and highly effective, that many teachers, then it should have been that many students achieving at higher levels, or that many schools achieving at those levels. So there was a disconnect. So you really get down to what does the data actually says, then that's how you know where you need to focus, and not just doing something off on a check mark. Because if you're a great teacher, then your students should be performing at the levels, at higher levels as well.
Mr. O'Malley just
Here's
brought
another
this from
one.
Trent. Mr. O'Malley just brought this from Trent.
School's practice test. All right, give me your attention up here, everyone. Settle down. First 3 rows, take 4 steps forward. Right now, come on. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Let's go. Turn around. Put both your hands above your heads. You people represent the 70% of our students who just failed the practice exam. 70%.
Now, we may not, the people may not be going to agree with Joe and his tactics, but he had to create this sense of urgency and this visual. That is exactly what I was saying. It's like, okay, we all think, we're doing a good job and the teachers are effective, the leaders are effective, we got all these high marks, but then the students' performance rates are not matching up. And you can argue all day long, oh my gosh, it's something that it's the environment, it's this, it's what's happening at home. I had a principal say, I don't care what happens, but between August and May, you have them and I expect growth. And from that conversation on, my students always scored 90% and up, 95% and up, because I could not use anything else as an excuse because I was their teacher. So if you want to look good, your students have to look good. So you as an administrator, it doesn't look good if your marks are showing highly effective. You are marking your teachers highly effective, but then your school data scores and your students, and even looking at the students who are in the lower 25%, if they're still staying at the lower 25%, then there's a problem. Everyone's not highly effective. That was, again, communication. So then we asked them, what is their plan? Now, by this point, we had people like leaning back in chairs, like wiping their heads, because they're realizing like, oh my gosh, we have not been doing a great job. Not saying that they weren't doing a great job as educators or leaders or administrators, but looking at data to make instruction, or they were just looking at surface level, and we were really trying to get them to dig deeper into making decisions based on the data. Again, it sounds simple, but you'll be surprised how many schools do not do that.
I want you to set up a student peer tutoring program. Yes, sir. You'll see if the
So we talked about the plan. So here's Joe's plan.
I want you to set up a student peer tutoring program. Yes, sir. You'll see if the students can't help themselves. Ms. Levias?
Yes, sir.
I want remedial reading on Saturdays.
Yes, Mr.
We'll have to ask for volunteers at regular pay because we can't afford overtime.
Mr. Clark.
Yes, Mrs. Santos.
The problem isn't our pay.
What is the problem as you see it, Mrs. Santos?
How to get the students in on Saturday, sir.
You hear that, people? Mrs. Santos says, how do we get the students in on Saturdays for remedial reading? Well, I'll tell you how. We'll go to their homes. We will talk to their folks. If their folks can't read, they can come in too. The only way we're going to get anything done is to get everyone involved. And that goes for all of you. It's time to get involved.
So this may sound drastic, but if you're looking at 70% of your school's population, the students have failed in an assessment, statewide assessment, there is a problem. You got to do things that's not, within the confounds. the parameters of what you typically do. So all three of us, Dr. Childs, Dr. Moses, and myself, we've all been in schools to where we had to do the extraordinary, right? I remember I would run boot camps, and back then it was FCAT boot camps, or then we would do Blitz Saturdays, or we would have the ones who got in trouble for Saturday school. We said, okay, this is now academic Saturday school. We had before things, care, after care, but it was academic center, not like to beat them up over the head with it. It wasn't looking like the classroom. That was the thing. It was something totally different, but it was still academic related. We had field days, everything that we could to get our students on board to see something different. We amped up our community development, our parent and guardian development. We did those things because it was like, look, we cannot do this by ourselves. We need your help. But then it was like not, and a lot of parents and guardians that we were dealing with, they weren't great students. You know, they had their own issues with schools. But when we said, look, we'll take care of the academics. We just need you to show up, love, support. We don't care if you just stand on the wall, you know, just be there. And those people showed up and showed out. And we all at our different stages moved schools in various directions, because we didn't go into school with blowhorns, but in a way, I was just over at math department. Dr. Moses was the principal, so he technically could do this. But we, in our own way, we had to say, look, if we want these results based on those goals that we had, if we actually honor our mission, vision, and values, we got to do something different. And it's going to require real work. And then what I do like when the teacher said it's not really about money. And this is true, although educators, whatever level, they're underpaid. A lot of times it was like, okay, you paid me, but my heart still is there for the children. It's not always about money. It's like, look, if you get them here, I'll do it. Then it's great if you pay me, but what's the point of you paying me and then I can't make the change that I want? So money isn't always a motivator. I want to put that out there, because now I do believe in compensating the people when they do the work, but don't just throw money at your teams or your staff or your teachers and say, well, get it done, because it's deeper than that. The next part is implementing an effective summative assessment process. 4 critical questions. What do we want all students to know and be able to do? These questions probably will sound basic and remedial and common sense, but it is not. You will be surprised, especially if you're not on an admin team and you're kind of on the outside. You'll be surprised that a lot of these questions do not take place. You might think they do, but they don't. How will we know if they know it? Simple. How will we know? And then how will we respond if they don't know it? That one is asked a lot. That is like the highlight question. That is the question that's, you know, that drives a lot of decisions, but that shouldn't be the only question. And here's a question that gets ignored. How will we respond if they do know it? What? You mean some kids and people can come and they know what's going on? Yeah. You don't always have to start from scratch. So these are great questions to ask. And then it says framework for data-driven decision making. I won't go through this entire thing, but look at this. You see the district, the school building, and then the actual classroom. School building, now that we're in a lot of places are in the virtual space, you can look at that as well. That's still considered building. And then look at the data, the information, and the knowledge. And I love these flowcharts because it looks complicated, but it's not. You collect the data, you organize it, then you analyze it, then summarize it. That includes feedback. Then you synthesize it and prioritize it. That's knowledge. Then you make the decision, then you implement, then you look at the impact. Once you see the impact, you use whatever comes out as feedback, which is also data, and you complete this cycle again. I have a master's in leadership. I've worked on leadership teams at the K-12 level and the collegiate level. And we hear that, oh, data-driven decision making. Yeah, it's a buzzword, but everyone doesn't go through this cycle. You may get data and then you try to jump to knowledge, or you may get data and information, but you don't get to the knowledge to do the implementation and the impact. Or you try to make these decisions and implement and look at the impact without the data, the information, and the knowledge. All of it has to flow to have true data-driven decision-making. So define summative assessment. Think of summative assessment as a means to gauge at a particular point in time. Student learning relative to content standards, tools to help evaluate the effectiveness of programs, school improvement goals, alignment of curriculum, or student placement in specific programs. Examples: state assessments, end of unit or chapter tests, student report cards, district benchmark or interim assessments, end of term or semester assessments, scores that are used for accountability for schools, or the AYP, annual yearly progress. So another way to do this, we have a chart for educational decision maker and then data uses. I'm not going to go through all of these, but the classroom teacher, what can they do? Develop and revise classroom instruction. I know the lesson, you know, you're writing the lesson plans, and it's like, okay, I know for me, I was in secondary, so it's like, okay, I wrote the lesson plans for first and second period. If I noticed that something was different, I needed to change that for third, fourth, and fifth period. Just because I wrote it didn't mean I need to keep the same, and then I need to go back to first and second with the new information. So that's how you use data in that case. For school administrators, again, assessing plans, the school plans, the targets, and the goals. That's what you do, administrator. You have to look at that constantly and make those decisions. These are our living documents, so they're not meant to just type it up one time and leave them. Same thing with superintendents, the board, and then education officials. If you see something in common, everyone needs to be developing and revisiting at their respective levels. And I think that's the part that is often missed at a lot of levels. And that is why we're not using data effectively. So this is a grading scale. Dr. Childs, he has his opinion about grades. I was IB trained. I think it's expired now, but I was International Baccalaureate trained at one point in time, and they didn't really use grades back then. So I have my own thoughts. Sometimes, you know, I feel like get away with grades and really focus on something else. But then because grades have been so deeply ingrained into our society, it would be a hard push to be like, no more grades. But there are some colleges actually that don't have grades, and yeah, whole big thing. So an A isn't just an A. I mean, you can do a lot of just busy work and get an A. So when you really think about a grading scale, it's like, are you really getting to the point or the root of understanding? Like, if an A means 100% or 90 to 100%, does that mean you understand 90 to 100% of the content, and can you prove it? Those are my thoughts. So Dr. Childs did this for check marks, plus signs, minus signs, and zeros. It's to keep practicing, not yet, not enough info. Students can use this as well, and that's getting them involved in their understanding and their own decision making using data. This was an actual grading policy, and I remember this as it was happening. So Dr. Childs sent his daughters to school, and you know, sometimes when you are an educator and then you have children and you send them there, and you're like you're deep in this education, and it's like, look, some things just aren't gonna fly, right? Like, I do this too much and I've done this too long to know that this is not gonna fly. So it says this was an actual grading policy, and he had some questions. So he emailed the teacher, and it says students will have at least 10 grades entered into Skyward for each subject, each 6 weeks. At least 2 grades will be summative test grades and will count for 40% of the total grade. If a student receives below a 70, their teacher will provide the student a reteach opportunity to relearn, practice the skill, and allow them to correct the low grade at school. The teacher will average the low first grade and the new grade. The average grade will be placed into the grade book. So this is what Dr. Childs emailed So the averaging, in quotes, of 2 grades does not accurately reflect student learning. For example, on my daughter's recent assessment, see attached, initially she would be considered at approaching grade level of 60%. On the retake, she was at mastery grade level of 100%. However, her final grade would be considered grade level at 80%. Based upon this grading policy, what does the grade 80% mean? So the response was the grade of 80 is, in this instance, shows her progress on those particular standards, okay? So the follow-up, sometimes educators are the educator's worst nightmare. So he says, just to clarify, the 80% shows her, quote, progress with the standard, even though she first demonstrated 60% proficiency and then 100% proficiency. Yes, sir. After reteach, she was able to demonstrate that she made progress on these standards. So there was more back and forth, but what Dr. Childs was saying is, okay, if the whole point is to show mastery, why are we averaging grades at this point? Because if she made a 60% and then it was a reteach and this 100%, well, she fully understands the standard, like at 100%. Why would you say that she only understands 80% of the material? That does not make sense. So if you're thinking about grades and percentages of what it actually means, that's where the discussion and the conversation comes from. So again, I have my thoughts about grading policy, but if you can truly articulate what the percentage as it relates to understanding the material means, then it's a great use. You can use that. However, in this case, if you're saying something about mastery, you did a retake, I made 100%, then I understand 100% of the material, not just 80%. This is just another grading scale. I'll move so you can see. This is another grading scale that you can use. What does it mean in students' terms, the performance level, and what does it mean in FSA terms? At that time, this was the Florida State Assessment, but it could be any assessment. Again, this is just some more data of how scores were ranging in our state. Your state could be different, but just really looking at these different proficiency levels and grade levels and what does this all mean? So I know the district and state throws out numbers, but as a leader in your school building, it's important for you to understand what they're asking for, what they're looking for, so you can communicate that to your teachers. And then your teachers can communicate that to the students. So remember, this is talking about the culture and the climate. This is talking about communication, and they're really using data effectively. Everyone needs to be involved. So this was cool. Dr. Moses, he did thermometers around his entire school. And look, the people at the conferences were going crazy over this part. They were like, oh my gosh, I want a thermometer. And we kept saying it's not the thermometer is not magic. It was just something visual for the school to use, how to use their data. So this is how he used it, FSA terms, and then the student-friendly terms. Again, they had to match because you as the leader need to know what it means to be inadequate all the way to mastery. The teacher needs to know, the parents and guardians need to know, and then the students need to know. So again, all the different levels, everyone involved. So selecting assessment instruments, this quote, marks and grades are meaningful when and only when they are based on quality assessment. So again, it doesn't matter, you can do 100%, and if you got 2 + 2, and the student got 100%, well, and if the standard said that they need to know how to multiply 3-digit numbers, then just because they got 100% of that assessment, that doesn't mean that grade was meaningful. I mean, if you in regards to that particular standard. Oh, look, here it is. An example. And oh my gosh, this happened so many times, and it's still happening. It is still, we did this one in 2018. It is currently 2021. This is still happening. And then people wonder why schools are not performing at the levels that they should be performing. Because in class with some of the textbooks, and I don't blame all of the textbooks because the information is in the textbooks, is whether or not the textbooks are being used effectively. So in class, you'll see 2 + 2 = 4. Then when they get home, they see something like 734 plus 555 minus 432. And it's like, what? And then when they get the assessment, I kid you not, I literally have seen this. It says, with 2 sheep flying, 1 yellow, the other headed right, how much does the pound of asphalt cost given the cow is 10 years old? We were joking with this, but it really goes from those levels of complexity to like, but I thought I've been doing 2 plus 2 in class. Then I get home and then, yeah, you may bump it up. And then when I take the exam, it's a whole word problem with words I don't even know what's in here. What are they asking me to do? So this was, we had fun with this one, but this is real. This is real. And it's like something needs to be aligned. If you know the assessment is going to look like all these word problems, why isn't that happening in the classroom? Leaders, make sure you're inspecting the instruction and the levels of complexity, please. And this assessments must be aligned. Assessment instruments must be aligned. Look at reliability of the assessment and understand that reliability equals consistency. Look at the accuracy of the assessment, check the validity. Yes, these are real data research terms, but they are useful in the school setting. Does it measure what it's supposed to measure? And then make sure that it's in the absence of any bias. And we'll get to that in a little bit. So this is what Dr. Moses did in his schools. He used the goal and he showed where people were. And then this is a real picture that he took in his school during that time in the classroom. This is one class with different blocks because this was middle school. And then we showed some examples. And then he got the students involved, which was always great. And then SMART goals, we hear that, we know that, but how many of us actually use that? So SMART goals, strategic, measurable, attainable, results-oriented, and time-bound. Yes, it's a cool acronym, but it means nothing if you don't actually use it. How are you doing this? Are you inspecting what you expect? Is it possible for you to do that? So it's not like we're going from 1% mastery to 100% mastery in 30 days now. You get your mindset right, you'll be surprised what you can do. But really, is it attainable? And then are we basing this on results and not just our feelings or how things should be or how things look? Is it the results that are produced? And then in what matter of time? If it doesn't have a deadline, it doesn't exist. This is just an example that we showed them in their handout.
Well, I'm sure you learned the schools.
Let me go back. So that was an example we showed them in their handout. And then, of course, we all tie it together with a video.
Well, I'm sure you've learned the school song by now.
All right, fellas, let them hear.
Fair East Side, by thy side will stand, and always praise thy name. Praise thy name, praise thy name.
Who taught you this song?
Mrs. Powers.
Powers?
Yes, sir.
These hoodlums have told me something I can't believe. Are you the one who changed the school song like that? Mrs. Powers, I have never heard a school song like that. And I certainly never authorized you to change it. I want everyone in this school to learn that song in English and Spanish immediately. Take a bow, Mrs. Powers. You've rewritten our alma mater.
I know you probably like, but Mr. Clark, it was a good thing. What I liked about this, and we're getting into the next part, he's been hardcore the whole movie. Again, this is Lean on Me. He's been hardcore the whole movie. But what you have to respect is when things end up looking right, he celebrated that success. And that's what we got into, celebrating success at all levels. I say this a lot in my videos and my trainings and things like that, because I didn't realize this until I learned it. We are under celebrated as a society. We make achievements, we accomplish things, and then we keep it moving. It's very rare that we take time to really celebrate. We may celebrate a birthday or a wedding or anniversary or whatever the case may be, but a little accomplishments, we don't celebrate those along the way. And it's very important to do that, because sometimes if you have a big goal like moving a school, which is a massive undertaking, you can't wait to the end to be like, oh, we did it. you got to keep that motivation and inspiration moving, you know, at all costs. Like every milestone needs to be celebrated so people can get that momentum and that energy back. And, you know, like my grandmother saying, we've heard this, I mean, she didn't make this up, I've heard this other places as well. Give me my flowers while I'm still here. Give the students and the teachers and the admin, give them their flowers when they make, you know, progress. Because if you're waiting to the end, they may never get that, because they're like, what's the point? You didn't appreciate when I moved 2 steps, then you didn't appreciate when I moved 5 steps. I don't have the energy to move 10 steps. So if you're saying, oh my gosh, good job, way to go at step 2, oh my gosh, good job, way to go at step 5, and it's like, okay, the momentum starts happening. Think of a little baby. A little baby start walking, they fall, they're like, oh my gosh, you fell, get back up, woo, let's do it again. Then they get up and try. Then they take a few more steps, they fall, and then they try to get back up, like, oh my gosh, you took some more, and they keep trying. But if the baby just fell, and I don't know, I haven't experimented, but I'm pretty sure it worked. If you ain't say nothing to the baby may try again, but then it's like, you don't say nothing, when I keep trying, then I'm just gonna stay here, right? So make sure you celebrate. And that to me, this is more than just a pizza party. This is more than just teacher appreciation. Make sure that it's tied and connected to the data. Because while we're under celebrated, sometimes we're celebrated, but we don't know why we're being celebrated, or we don't know what we're celebrating. So if you're celebrating those benchmarks, now they're connecting celebration to actual results. Minor, but it has a major impact. So a lot of people didn't celebrate. If they did, they used the pizza party or the teacher appreciation, but nothing that was related to the goals that they set. You know, no fault of theirs, but you know, when you know better, you do better. So an effective celebration program will convince every staff member that he or she can be a winner and that his or her efforts can be noted and appreciated. Yes, it sounds woo-woo and touchy-feely, but you need a little bit of that, especially when you're focusing on something as heavy as data, numbers, achievement, you know, instruction, leadership, moving, growing, expanding. You do want to have those times where you are celebrating each milestone. And then keys for incorporating celebration. Explicitly state the purpose of the celebration. Said that. Make celebrations everyone's responsibility. So it's not just the teacher who likes to do arts and crafts. It's not just the social studies department. It's not just the principal's secretary. It is everyone's responsibility. Establish a clear link between the recognition and the behavior or commitment you are attempting to encourage to reinforce. See, I said that. Now, I don't pre-watch these. I just go by memory of what we did at that time, because I want to make sure that my perspective isn't contaminated or hindered or skewed. So again, with my evolution and the new work that I've done, I know this to be true and know that this is important. And then create opportunities for many winners. This is not the first place, second place, third place. The more that you can increase the circle, the more people are willing to actually do the work. Okay, so it must have cut off somewhere. So I am back. Maybe I need to turn off my camera. All right, so I think it stopped here. Keys for incorporating celebration. I'll say this again, explicitly state the purpose of celebrating, make celebration everyone's responsibility, establish a clear link between the recognition and the behavior or commitment you are attempting to encourage and reinforce, and create opportunities for many winners. Why celebrate? Because it's fun and everyone needs to be responsible, and then create an action plan. We plan for everything else, or we should be planning for everything in our lives. Without a vision, people will perish, and then you're supposed to make a plan so that others may pick it up and be able to run with it. So you need to think about your school, your building, your district, your state, whatever location, whatever position you hold, think of it as, you know, your personal lesson plan or sub plan. If someone comes in and takes over, will they be able to pick up your plans and execute them? Same thing for celebration, and talk about what steps or activities must be initiated, who's responsible, the timeline they're supposed to do these activities, and then how will you assess the effectiveness. Notice how everything has some form of assessment. That's part of accountability. And then win small, win early, and win often. Again, if you set the appropriate milestones, check marks, time, the targets, the mini targets, then you can build up. It's like the snowball effect. So once you do it, it's easy to accomplish something. Think about weight loss. You lose 1 pound or release 1 pound. I want to say lose it because, we don't want to find it and pick it back up. So release it. If our goal is 25 pounds, we don't want to wait until we hit 25 because sometimes we never make it. But if we say, oh my gosh, so great, I released 1 pound. Oh, the next I released 5. Then all of a sudden we look up, we probably released 30 pounds. Same thing if you're training for a marathon, or let's just say a 5K. All right, I ran for 2 minutes today. I did 5 minutes today, like running. And that app, I think it's Couch to 5K or something like that. It does that. It shows you to win small, win early, win often, and you'll be running a 5K in no time if that's your desire.
It is my privilege.
And,
my honor to
while we celebrate all the things that Joe Clark did, came to this point.
It is my privilege and my honor to report to you that the students of Eastside High have passed the minimum basic skills test.
I remember I was actually working at a high school that had been taken over, held hostage by the state. And I remember we were all outside. The principal called the assembly. Everyone was at the district office. They came down. The people, the state representatives that was over us came down. And I remember everyone was outside and it was like, all right, here we go. Why did y'all bring us out here? And we went from like a D school to a B school. And it was like, that was not possible. How did we do it? And we did it. And we had a huge celebration just like this, because when I say everyone worked their behinds off, everyone worked their behinds off. So again, I have this connection with Mr. Clark because I understand being in the trenches, and then when it's finally time to celebrate, oh my gosh, what a feeling that is.
It is my privilege.
Oh, I just did that. Sorry. All right. So revisiting, this is how we do our workshops, make sure that we hit those targets and those goals, developing a data-informed school culture, implementing an effective summative assessment process, and then celebrating success at all levels. And then, of course, we always ask for reflections, and I would love to hear your reflection down in the comments below. And then I hope that you are ready to have a more data-informed culture and climate in your school.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah, thank you so much for listening and learning with me. I love going through my old presentations, especially the evolution of my career to where I am and where I was. And then this is just another way to showcase the vast amount of experiences that I have. So if you learned something, I hope you did. Comment down below, let me know. Feel free to reach out to me on any social media platforms at some variation of Dr. Vernita Glenn White. And until next time, bye.